The phone number, if you want to be on the program, 877-973-7425. This is very important. Every year on this day, a week before Thanksgiving, I send out the list of all the recipes I'll be cooking over the holiday season. And so if you weren't here to get this PDF last year, if you text the word recipe, singular, no S on the end, just text the word recipe to 33777 at 3 p.m. Eastern today. I will send out the PDF. If you're listening to me after 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, November 21st, if you text recipe to 33777, click the link. You can go through to the website and see it. Otherwise, beforehand, put in your email address and I'll email it to you. But it is my PDF of recipes. If you're on my daily show notes email, you got it this morning. And why? Because I am world renowned now. And I say that, and you think I'm kidding. It's not a joke. The gravy recipe, my gravy for Thanksgiving every year. I know it's a little bit wild, but I have gotten emails from people in, Singapore, Israel, Germany, the United Arab Emirates, and Australia, among others, who make my gravy for their holidays, including expats who are living abroad for Thanksgiving. It's an easy recipe. It's a no-fail recipe. You just got to get the onions right. That's it. You don't even taste the onion. But text the word recipe to 33777. I'll get you all the recipes, even the breakfast casseroles I make on the morning of Thanksgiving when we're feeding the family, all the pies, all the salads. Yeah, there are a couple salad recipes in there, believe it or not. But you get it all. Comes out 3 p.m. Eastern time today. So text recipe, singular, to 33777. I need to begin with a story, and there are two stories that I would say are actually related. One is 2 cables have been cut in the Baltic. Now, for those of you in Rio Linda, the Baltic is a sea north of the European continent. The Baltic is that body of water that is south of Sweden and Finland, and on the far eastern edge of it is the Baltic republics, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. You've got Poland and Germany to the south of it, Denmark to the west of it, Sweden, Norway, and Finland to the north of it. The Baltic is that body of water, and there are 2 undersea fiber optic cables that deliver internet to the Scandinavian countries. Over the last several months, Finland in particular, but also northern Norway and Sweden, have seen sabotage efforts at above Arctic Circle power plants, internet information data centers, and other places. And now 2 fiber optic cables in the Baltic Sea have been cut. The Finns have arrested several Russians for sabotage. Russians have been uncovered in Norway and Sweden as well. Remember, Sweden and Finland have just joined NATO. And now these 2 undersea cables were cut. And you're thinking, aha, the Russians. Except it does not appear to be the Russians. A Chinese vessel has been detained by the Danes. That would be the people of Denmark, for those of you in Rio Linda. And the Danes have grabbed this ship and are inspecting it because this particular ship that is Chinese, filled with Chinese sailors, happened to be in the vicinity of the 2 cuts of the fiber optic cables at the time they were made. It's a major escalation. So for perspective now, you have North Koreans lined up en masse on the border ready to invade Ukraine. You have the Russians sabotaging power plants in Finland, or trying. You have the Chinese in the Baltic Sea cutting cables, allegedly. And that is Europe and the European theater of this world war we seem to be in and don't even realize. Now, you come across to our hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere. And south of us, there is a river. That river runs along the border of Guyana and Venezuela, the Amacura River. It is due south of, well, it's to the southeast of Florida. It's there between Venezuela and Guyana, south of Puerto Rico. And in that river is an Iranian naval vessel, a Chinese naval vessel, and a Russian naval vessel helping the Venezuelans prepare for an invasion of Guyana. We're not prepared for what's coming. Now, I give you all of these stories to paint this picture, and don't forget, the Russians are also in West Africa. They have been pushing Americans out of American military bases. They've been launching coups in a series of West African nations, and then when the new governments arise, they throw out the Americans, and then the Russians go away. So what are the Russians doing there? Well, the Russians are getting the Americans out of West Africa, then themselves leaving before the Islamic radicals come in and set up shop, knowing that we will be bogged down with Islamic radicals. Because while the Islamic radicals hate the Russians, they hate us more. Now, there's another story. Let me just read you this from Wired Magazine. I touched on this a little bit the other day. Nearly every weekday morning, a device leaves a two-story home near Wiesbaden, Germany, makes a 15-minute commute along a major autobahn. By around 7 a.m., it arrives at Louis D. Clay Kaserne, the U.S. Army's European headquarters and a key hub for U.S. intelligence operations. The device stops near a restaurant before heading to an office near the base that belongs to a major government contractor responsible for outfitting and securing some of the nation's most sensitive facilities. For nearly 2 months in 2023, this device followed a predictable routine. Stops at the contractor's office, visits to a discreet hangar on base, and lunchtime trips to the base's dining facility. Twice in November of last year, it made a 30-minute drive to the Dagger Complex, a former intelligence and NSA signals processing facility. On weekends, the device could be traced to restaurants and shops in Wiesbaden. The individual carrying the device likely isn't a spy or high-ranking intelligence official. Instead, experts believe they're a contractor who works on critical systems, HVAC, computing infrastructure, or possibly securing the newly built Consolidated Intelligence Center, a state-of-the-art facility suspected to be used by the National Security Agency. Whoever they are, the device they're carrying with them everywhere is putting U.S. national security at risk. A joint investigation by Wired Magazine, Bayer Schlur Rundfunk, and Netzpolitik.org reveals the U.S. companies legally collecting digital advertising data are also providing the world a cheap and reliable way to track the movements of American military and intelligence personnel overseas, from their homes and their children's schools to hardened aircraft shelters within an airbase where U.S. nuclear weapons are believed to be stored. A collaborative analysis of billions of location coordinates obtained from a U.S.-based data broker provides extraordinary insight into the daily routines of U.S. service members. The findings also provide a vivid example of the significant risks that unregulated sale of mobile location data poses to the integrity of the U.S. military and the safety of its service members and their families abroad. We tracked hundreds of thousands of signals from devices inside sensitive U.S. installations in Germany. These included scores of devices within suspected NSA monitoring or signals analysis facilities, more than 1,000 devices at a sprawling U.S. compound where Ukrainian troops were training in 2023, and nearly 2,000 others at an Air Force base that has crucially sponsored and supported American drone operations. A device likely tied to an intelligence employee broadcast coordinates from inside a windowless building with a metal exterior known as the tin can, which is used for NSA surveillance. Another device transmitted signals from within a restricted weapons testing facility, revealing its zigzagging movements across a high-security zone used for tank maneuvers and live munition drills. We tracked these devices from barracks to work buildings, Italian restaurants, Aldi grocery stores, and bars. As many as 4 devices that regularly ping from Ramstedt Air Base were tracked to brothels off base, including a multi-story facility called Sex World. Employees caution that foreign governments could use this data to identify individuals with access to sensitive areas. Terrorists or criminals could decipher where nuclear weapons are least guarded, and spies or other nefarious actors could leverage embarrassing information for blackmail. You take these stories together, and we are doing ourselves in, and China's just sitting back and watching. The Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the Venezuelans, the North Koreans. If you don't want to call them an axis of evil because it draws up too many post 9/11 images from the Bush administration, and some people want to laugh and dismiss you for calling it that, well, they are an Eastern Axis. They are our enemies. They are in war with us right now, and we're not even willing to recognize it, and we've made ourselves vulnerable here. There are groups in this country right now advocating that states do stress tests on their infrastructure. What are these stress tests? Well, in some states, they become so efficient and so online that a hacker can get in immediately and poison the water supply or shut down the water supply or shut down a natural gas pipeline, as hackers have done in this country in the last few years. They can overwhelm power facilities and cause them to heat up or break down. They can shut down the power grid. States should be doing these stress tests to see just how hackable they are. The Chinese are in decline, and that makes them very dangerous. The number of street protests in China have gone up by 1/3 this year from last year. The number of violent suicides in China, that is, people killing themselves and in the process taking out as many people as possible, has gone up 100-fold apparently this year. Their society is breaking down. And the way you get a society that is collapsing to focus is to go to war. Xi Jinping understands this. He understands China is not on the rise, it's on the decline, and he's got to halt the decline. That makes him dangerous. And unfortunately for us, we have a dementia patient in the White House. And he is surrounded by fools who have gotten every major foreign policy issue on the planet wrong. These are dangerous times, but I'm telling you, you should be asking your state representatives and state senators to get your governors to do infrastructure stress tests right now to see just how hackable your water supplies are and your power grid is and your natural gas lines are. Something wicked this way comes. The Chinese have cut data cables, it appears, in the Baltic Sea, coordinating with the Russians who are trying to sabotage power plants in Finland. And in Venezuela, they're coordinating with the Iranians and the Venezuelans, while the North Koreans amass on the border of Ukraine. We have an Eastern Axis that wants the end of Western power, and that means the end of us in a global leadership role, and we should not be willing to decline for them. But we got to do something, and I don't know that we're ready for what's coming. Thank goodness the Trump administration is coming in soon. I have an announcement. It is important. We've settled on a name for the dog. It's okay. For those of you who aren't, listen, I apologize. Y'all would be stunned at the number of emails and voicemails we have gotten, text messages I've gotten. So let me just give you the story. On Monday, my wife finally broke down and was sobbing about the death of Maggie, our golden doodle, and said she really thought she needed another dog. I now no longer do my show from home most days. I have an office. One kid's in school, one kid's in college. She's there by herself. She wants a dog. So she found a place in South Alabama, Smeralia, I believe the name of it is how it's pronounced, and they breed doodles. Now, we have to have a doodle. My apologies to those of you who do rescue animals. I am really allergic to dogs, really, really allergic to dogs. and we got to have a doodle, and you never find those in shelters and the like. So she reached out to the breeder, and she found the dog she wanted. She found the dog. She found it on the website, but it was pending. There was another person, and so we couldn't get it. So she called them to inquire about the dog, and they said, nope, can't have this dog. Dog is taken, but we'll have a litter available sometime in January, February. You can get on the waiting list. You'll be back, but then we got another litter coming, so it could be middle of next year or so before we get a dog. And then yesterday I got off work, and by the time I got home, the breeder had called my wife and said, hey, the couple that were interested in that dog decided they don't want that dog because we're making that dog go through a service program because it's got all the perfect characteristics to be a service animal. Do you want the dog? And Christy's like, yes. So then we had to argue over a name, and my family comes up with dumb names for dogs. And I finally said Max. I have always wanted a dog named Max. And this is a boy dog. It is a schnoodle, which is a schnauzer poodle mix, which apparently is even more hypoallergenic than a golden doodle. And this dog has to be trained to be a service animal. They said not because it's bad, but because it's got all the characteristics that are perfect for service animals, and they make all those dogs that do go through it, so it'll be perfect for my wife. So answers to prayer. She prayed real hard about this puppy, and now it's coming to her, and its name will be Max. Now I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank because they're my bank, and I want you, if you are a business, to consider using Old Glory Bank. Now listen, I know that it's a little bit outside the wheelhouse of some businesses to use a bank that doesn't have a local branch. I get it. But I can assure you, every business I've now sent to them, and we're over 5 at this point, have fallen in love with Old Glory Bank. Why? Because they're hands-on with lines of credit, with loans. They handle checking and savings and payroll and everything well. Everything gets processed. They have low fees, and they're very easy to work with. If you're an individual, they have a no-fee checking and no-fee savings account. That's what I have. I love them so much I've actually invested in the bank. I'm a really big fan of Old Glory Bank. I was with them before they were an advertiser. I begged them to advertise because I want everybody to know they exist. OldGloryBank.com. OldGloryBank.com. You can fill out the account information online and start today. OldGloryBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. I don't want to trigger any of you. My goodness, the amount of angry people over me explaining to them who Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is, not who they think he is, because he sided with them on COVID. It's like, we used to joke all the time that for progressives, history began in 2008 when Barack Obama ran for president. There are a number of people who are new to politics who've gotten in over the last few years, and history began for them at COVID. And they're like, we literally had a woman call this program who was furious that I would accuse Robert Kennedy of being a left-wing environmentalist. It's like, do you have any idea who this man is other than he opposes red dye number 5 and the COVID vaccine? I just thought he was a healthcare guy. There's audio out today of Robert Kennedy mocking Trump supporters, calling them Nazi supporters, and Donald Trump that he's the only thing that separates him from Adolf Hitler is that Hitler actually believed in public policy. Now that's from 2016, and so Trump's was like, well, he's changed it. Yeah, okay, whatever. Robert Kennedy is a horrible human being who should be nowhere near power. But I'm not here to pick this fight with the wackadoo conspiracy theorists who believe in chemtrails. By the way, Robert Kennedy, they uncovered audio of him as well saying, oh, yeah, chemtrails. Yes, I believe, really. My gosh, there are insane people out there. Here's my point, though. There are new allegations that have surfaced on Pete Hegseth, the would-be defense secretary. I actually like Pete Hegseth. I think he would be a great secretary of defense. These allegations have all the makings of a Kavanaugh hearing. A police report on the alleged sexual assault by Pete Hegseth on a woman have surfaced. The report provided by the city of Monterey, California, was released to Hegseth in March of 2021 per his request. It runs 22 pages and details the allegations leveled by a woman who claimed in 2017 that she was sexually assaulted at a Republican women's conference. Tim Parlatore, Hegseth's attorney, vehemently denied the assault when it was first reported last week that a detailed memo of the claim had been sent to the Trump team. Parlatore claims the sex was consensual and that Hegseth later paid his accuser as part of a non-disclosure agreement to protect his reputation. In a new statement in light of the full police report, the attorney says, quote, "This police report confirms what I've said all along. The incident was fully investigated. Police found the allegations to be false, which is why no charges were filed. The report includes accounts from several police officers who spoke with Hegseth, his accuser, who remains anonymous, and others present at the conference, which took place in October of 2017. According to the report, the police were first made aware of the alleged assault when the woman, who was 30 at the time, submitted for a rape kit exam at a local hospital. A nurse from the hospital called an officer at the Monterey Police Department and reported the assault claim. Days later, police spoke with the woman as part of their investigation. The woman said she spoke with Hegseth on the final night of the conference, during which everyone was drinking in a suite and at a bar at the hotel. She told police Hegseth was flirting with women, putting his hand on their leg at the conference, and this prompted her to tell Hegseth she didn't appreciate how he treated women. Two different women who attended the conference spoke with police, said Hegseth put their hand on their legs and asked them to come back to his room on separate occasions. One of the women who worked at the conference told police she told Hegseth the physical contact was not acceptable, and then called the alleged victim over to act as a buffer. Now, again, this is important. She went to the hospital. She went through a rape kit. He paid her money. He says she wasn't drunk, and he used no protection. And, well, the police investigated. There was nothing to come of it. The Trump team allegedly is upset that Hegseth did not disclose this to them. Look, there was no charge. The police did not charge him with sexual assault. Here's the point. Donald Trump just won a transformational election. Donald Trump just cobbled together the largest multi-racial, multi-ethnic coalition Republicans have ever gotten to become president of the United States. He won the popular vote. Now, he did not win over 50% of the popular vote, but Bill Clinton only won 43% of the popular vote in 1992, and the media called that a mandate for change. Trump won the popular vote, just less than 50%. It was split between multiple candidates, not just him and Harris. I just think, as an outside observer, that Donald Trump has one term. He is automatically a lame duck. And is it worth it? And you decide for yourselves. Is it worth it for Donald Trump when there are picks who would be just as good? Is it worth it for him to spend his political capital on Matt Gaetz, Robert Kennedy, maybe even Pete Hegseth, and some of the others, when instead he could find people who have totally bought into his agenda, who don't have the baggage, and he could focus on the transformational election instead? Liam Donovan is a political strategist, and he pulled up what I thought was a very funny picture from a Spider-Man cartoon last night, and this kind of gets to the point I'm making, and I got to give Liam Donovan credit for this. It's not me. So it is a picture of a bad guy. Spider-Man is talking to the bad guy, and the bad guy looks like a dinosaur. What were the flying dinosaurs? A pterodactyl. That's what it is, a pterodactyl. And Spider-Man says to the pterodactyl, "You can rewrite DNA on the fly, and you're using it to turn people into dinosaurs? With the tech that you have, you could cure cancer." And the bad guy who has transformed himself into a pterodactyl replies, but I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs. And so Liam Donovan posts this picture from the Spider-Man comic. And he says, but sir, with your historic victory, you have a mandate for a sweeping policy agenda that could consolidate a multiracial working class coalition and usher in a generation of Republican dominance. Why squander your political capital on intramural squabbles over dodgy nominees? Let me explain, and I realize that maybe some of these are hoaxes. Here are a couple problems. With the Hegseth allegation, there was a police report. It was filed in 2017 after the incident, 4 days after the incident. That's different from the Kavanaugh situation where there was never any sort of police report filed, and nobody had any recollection of this. And then there's Gaetz, but it looks like there's breaking news now. Matt Gaetz has just withdrawn himself from the attorney general position, which, again, goes to this situation. Yep, that's it. Matt Gaetz is withdrawing from consideration of attorney general he previously nominated. Good. The Ethics Committee report was blocked by the House Ethics Committee, but there were votes there to get it released on the House floor. A number of Republicans came forward and said they would vote with the Democrats to release his ethics report. So Matt Gaetz, who resigned from Congress, has now decided he's going to likewise withdraw from his attorney general bid. Here is his post. I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it was clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction. There's no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle, so I'm withdrawing my name for consideration. Trump's DOJ must be in place ready on day one. I will be forever honored that President Trump nominated me to lead the Department of Justice. Kevin McCarthy got a scalp. But Gaetz's post gets to the problem here, also with Kennedy and with Hegseth. Donald Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready at day one. So must the Department of Defense. So must the Department of Homeland Security. So much the Department of Health and Human Services. HHS, where he's putting Kennedy, spends a quarter of the federal budget outside of Social Security, Medicare. Quarter of the federal budget. Why spend political capital on these picks? Why spend political capital that you could use to consolidate your working class coalition and advance your agenda? Here's the way Washington works. The way Washington works is senators and representatives are willing to go to bat for you, but when they keep getting lit on fire by everyone else for going to bat for you, at some point they stop going to bat for you. You put them in a difficult position voting for a nominee with allegations filed years ago about sexual assault. Or the Gaetz situation, which now thankfully he is out of. At some point, the senators say, look, I voted for you on this and I voted for you on this, so I'm not going to vote for you anymore on this stuff. Forget it. I've already proven my loyalty, and now I got to work for re-election. The Trump team, they've been spared now Matt Gaetz's nomination. But they're going to have to look at Hegseth now, who, frankly, I think Hegseth would be a great Secretary of Defense. But I think with a sexual assault allegation filed by police report in 2017, concurrent to the time that it happened, there are going to be a lot of questions, a lot of tough questions for him. And then I think Robert Kennedy is a progressive, gun-grabbing, pro-abortion nut, and I don't know that any Republican pro-lifer in the Senate should be voting for a pro-abortion gun-grabber just because he opposes red dye number 5 in the COVID vaccine. All of this is to say, Donald Trump's got a lot of political capital. He needs to be careful how he spends it. Does he want to spend it on making America great again? Or does he want to spend it on getting cabinet picks through when there are other people who would be just as good? Roger Cervino would be perfect for HHS. There are plenty of people who will make fine Department of Justice nominees. Matt Whitaker, who he just nominated to be ambassador to NATO, would be fantastic. The Attorney General of Missouri would be Josh Hawley in the Senate would be a fantastic Attorney General. Josh Hawley in the United States Senate would be a brilliant Attorney General without all of Matt Gaetz's baggage. Now he's got a do-over with Gaetz. He may get a do-over with a couple of these others. I would just advise the Trump transition team, be careful how you spend your political capital. You're already headed in as a lame duck. Be very careful how you spend your political capital. Now, let me tell you about Hillsdale College. If you're looking to make a tax-deductible donation, they're a great group to support. You go to erickforhillsdale.com. You can watch a short video on what Hillsdale College means. They've been educating Americans since the 1800s. And they've been educating them, not indoctrinating them. They are committed to education, to showing the genius of our founders through the founders' own works and writings and deeds. They would love to have you a part. They give so much away for free, too. For example, Imprimis, I've been getting since I was in law school, comes to you every month. Imprimis is a journal for the American mind on the thoughtful ideas across America that are penetrating college campuses. It's such a great publication. Again, it's free. Dr. Arndt's lectures on the Constitution are free. So much that Hillsdale does, they make freely available thanks to their donors. You can learn about Hillsdale College at erickforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, erickforhillsdale.com. Go sign up, watch the video, learn about Hillsdale, get Imprimis. It costs you nothing to go to erickforhillsdale.com and get Imprimis, and you will greatly benefit for it. erickforhillsdale.com. Check them out today. Brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. Wherever you are nationwide, you can use First Liberty if you're buying a building, need a heavy equipment loan for your business. Reach out, firstlibertyga.com. I'm going to toot my horn on your behalf for just a moment. Since the Matt Gaetz nomination was announced, I have been just vilified on social media by people who insisted there was no way to stop Matt Gaetz, that he would be recess appointed. They would use the Federal Vacancies Act. They would do whatever they needed to do to get Matt Gaetz to the Department of Justice. There was no stopping him. And I told people he doesn't have the votes in the Senate. And you can't recess appoint someone when the vacancy exists while the Senate's in session without certain parameters happening, including consent of the Senate to go into recess to let you do it. And the Federal Vacancies Reform Act did not apply. And I was told very insistently by random people on social media and callers to this program that I was wrong. Matt Gaetz would be the nominee and he would become the Attorney General. And here's what I told you that none of you seem to want to pay attention to. I know members of the United States Senate. They are personal friends of mine. And I called them and I asked them, and every one of them was adamant that the recess appointment provision doesn't apply. The Federal Vacancies Reform Act doesn't apply. By the way, I was a lawyer who did work with the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. I could have told you that. But more importantly, they wouldn't vote for Matt Gaetz. I told you. If you're a listener to this program, you have known since the moment Matt Gaetz was appointed that the votes did not exist for him in the United States Senate, no matter how much you heard from other people, no matter how many people spun you into believing that the votes were there. I know why, because I physically picked up my phone and called personal friends of mine who are United States senators, and I asked them. If you listen to social media, they assured you the votes were there. In fact, yesterday, there was a big show of Matt Gaetz and J.D. Vance going to members of the U.S. Senate to talk to them. And the word was that all the meetings were grand and glorious and it was good and they were open-minded and they would consider him and they appreciated his explanations. And I said on this very program, it was all for show. It wasn't going to happen. He didn't have the votes. Ladies and gentlemen, he didn't have the votes. He's never had the votes. Members of the House Republicans were willing to sabotage him to stop him from getting the votes. And if you listen to the echo chamber on Twitter, they all said Erickson's wrong. He's broken. He's never Trump. It's Trump derangement syndrome. Erickson's wrong. The president will have his nominee. And I was willing to take the slings, the arrows, the barbs, even from some friends, because I knew I was right. And if you listen to this program, you're going to be way more informed than a whole lot of people on social media, because I know when to pick up the phone and ask questions of friends who know answers when I don't know the answer. And I knew the answer because I talked to those people. Matt Gaetz will not be the Attorney General of the United States of America, which I have been telling you since the moment he was nominated, contrary to the shrill voices on social media. So, moral of the story is, when I get it wrong, I try to correct myself. But very frequently, I get it right, even though a lot of people tell me I'm wrong. This time, I was right and knew exactly what I was talking about because I had the inside sources. My fellow Americans, I'm delighted to have you with me. It's Erickson here from Coast to Coast. The phone number is 877-973-7425. As a reminder, if you text the word recipe, not recipes with an S, just recipe, to 33777 in less than 1 hour, I am sending out my list of holiday recipes. There are some great ones in there. A listener, Alice, actually emailed and said that I do not spend enough time talking about my wife's salad recipe in there. My wife, a friend of ours, made this salad, and it's got cranberries and apples and walnuts and then this maple dressing. And it's I do not like cranberries. And no, I'm not a big salad. I mean, look at me. I'm not a salad eater, but everybody loves it. So yes, that recipe is in there. My wife is a little bit embarrassed for me to give her credit because it's actually her friend's recipe, but nonetheless, it's there. Got lots of recipes. Just text the word recipe to 33777 at 3 p.m. Eastern time today. It'll go out. Otherwise, if you just click that link after 3 p.m. Eastern today, you can go through. It'll be at the top of the page. You'll see the recipes. Enjoy them. They're very easy. The gravy's the best. Now, we need to talk about the Jews. So, okay. Tangent. A lady on Twitter, in fact, let me find this thread. This is too good not to read with you. This is from a lady named Anise. She says, on the walk yesterday, I was saying how I don't think I've seen a single Kamala sign in the neighborhood, but I've seen 24 Trump signs. My 6-year-old asked if this was good or bad. I told him it was good because I don't like Kamala. He gets very sheepish. And he finally says, Mom, I had to color a Kamala picture at school. And I said, what? And I'm thinking, my gosh, I got to find a new school. And the 6-year-old says, yeah, everyone had to do it. And he's very somber about it. I asked him for what the teacher said. He said they just learned about Kamala and colored in a picture. And he used blue because blue was the right color. And I asked him if they colored any Donald Trump pictures. And he said, no. He said the teacher never even talked about Trump. Now I'm really bummed because I got to take him out of school. So today I asked him for more details. I really like his school. They just don't seem like they would push politics on first graders, but I'm concerned. They've never mentioned anything in the lead up to the election. And so I asked him if he remembered the most interesting thing about Kamala. And he says, yes, you get a present. I says, a present? I asked him to tell me more, and he's very forthcoming, that there are these lightings of candles each day, and you get presidents each day, and then presidents each day. And he says, Mom, can we do Kamala? And I finally said, are you talking about Hanukkah? He says, yes, Hanukkah. Not Kamala, Hanukkah. Oh, out of the mouths of babes. So let's talk about the Jews. The International Criminal Court needs to be destroyed. They have issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli military or defense minister Gaetz. They are the Netherlands, by the way, which had a series of anti-Semitic attacks last week that provoked the king of the Netherlands, who rarely speaks publicly. The king of the Netherlands last week, after the series of attacks, issued a statement and said, "We failed the Jews in World War II, and we failed them again this week." And now this week, a week later, the Netherlands has failed the Jews again. They've issued arrest warrants for leading members of the Israeli government for supposed genocide in Gaza. They have bought the PR spin from the Hamasniks. But it's not just that. It's not just that. Senators Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff of Georgia voted to kill weapons sales to Israel as Israel continues to fight its enemies. They attempted to block sales of weapons to Israel. Now, we just got through an election season where a historic number of Jews voted Republican. They voted for Donald Trump. A lot of Jews voted for Hitler, apparently, according to the Democrats. Why on earth would the Jews support a man the Democrats say is Hitler? Perhaps it's because, actually, the Jews support Israel. And Donald Trump is no Hitler. He supports Israel. But it's not just that. Democrats have now come out in opposition to H.R. 9495. You have no idea what H.R. 9495 is. It's legislation that a majority of Democrats backed until today. H.R. 9495 denies tax-exempt status to organizations that finance terrorists. After having previously been supportive of this legislation, Democrats have walked away. By the way, the legislation also funds victims. So if there's victims of terrorism, the funds that are derived from these organizations would go to support the victims of the terror. And the Democrats, a majority of them, supported this legislation until today. What's changed? Donald Trump's going to be president of the United States. The Ways and Means Committee held multiple hearings on H.R. 9495. Members spoke to witnesses who testified about it. They separately uncovered how some tax-exempt organizations have abused the American tax code to fund disruptive and illegal activities at home and terrorism abroad. The bill's straightforward. Organizations found to have provided material support to a listed terrorist organization get stripped of their tax-exempt status. It's not a whimsical determination. It doesn't allow Donald Trump to punish nonprofits in this country at will. There has to be proof that they provided material support to a designated terrorist organization. And the designation is not something the Treasury Secretary could just do willy-nilly. The text of the bill makes clear the designation has to fall within the legal definition of support for terrorism. In fact, the legislation, for purpose of this paragraph, the term terrorist supporting organization means any organization which is designated by the Secretary as having provided during the 3-year period ending on the date of such designation material support or resources to an organization within the meaning of Section 2339B of Title 18 of the U.S. Code. Now, 2339B of Title U.S. Code, what is this? Whoever knowingly provides material support or for resources to a foreign terrorist organization or attempts to conspire to do so shall be fined. To violate this paragraph, a person must have knowledge that an organization is a designated terrorist organization, that the organization has engaged or engages in terrorist activity, or that the organization has engaged or engages in terrorism. This is the legislation. There has to be direct knowledge. But the Democrats who supported this legislation until Donald Trump won the election have suddenly said, you know what, we're okay with these nonprofit groups funding terrorists. Is it any wonder Jewish Americans have shifted so quickly towards the Republican Party? They haven't become conservatives. American Jews tend to be more progressive than a lot of other defined ethnic groups in this country. But none of these other groups ever have to worry about extermination. Only the Jews must worry about extermination. And the Democrats had their back until the election. And Jewish Americans pivoted right at the election. They did not like Kamala Harris's weak statements on supporting Israel. They did not like the progressive flank of the Democratic Party allying with Hamasniks. And now after the election, the Democrats' response is, we're going to allow nonprofits to support terrorism. Because the Jews didn't vote for them? That seems to be the implication. Now you've got this situation in the Netherlands with the International Criminal Court. The United States, by the way, does not support the International Criminal Court. In fact, to their credit, the Biden administration just 2 days ago vetoed a Security Council resolution that called for an end to the fighting in Gaza because it did not prioritize the return of hostages to Israel. There are still kidnapped victims of October 7th in Gaza, and the resolution made no mention of their return. So the Biden administration vetoed the resolution. They should have vetoed it even if it contained that, but good for them for vetoing this one. And they've refused to play nice with the International Criminal Court. Biden could play nice with the International Criminal Court, but he's refused, and this country's refused to be involved with it. But you got a situation now where an international court in the Netherlands has decided that they will go Jew hunting like the Arabs in the streets of Amsterdam and try to round up Jewish leaders who are defending Israel against a terrorist organization. All these years later, Europe is walking away again from the Jews. And it is wild to me. It is deeply hilariously ironic to me that the man who is standing up for the Jews is a man the Democrats have compared to Hitler. Marco Rubio will be the Secretary of State. You know, for all the never-Trumpers out there who are just insistent, all of his nominees are terrible, Marco Rubio is a great pick for Secretary of State. His family fled Cuba. They know tyranny. They've opposed tyranny. And he knows the history of Europe. Marco Rubio knows it is a warning sign for bad things coming when the Europeans begin to persecute the Jews. And it's begun again. And Donald Trump will have him whispering in his ear. And that's a good thing. And Donald Trump has made very clear he supports Netanyahu's government and he supports Israel. That's a good thing. What's terrible, though, is that the Democrats, when presented with an opportunity for a clear call to stand with Israel and against anti-Semitism, have decided to walk away from that because they don't like that a lot of Jews in this country decided to vote for Donald Trump after the Democrats are the ones who decided to allow Hamasniks to run rampant on college campuses and harass Jews across America. Maybe they should be showing their fidelity to the Jewish people instead of turning their backs on them and siding with the people who would hunt the Jews on college campuses. The Democrats, they're not going to learn any lessons from 2024, are they? They're already saying, Donald Trump's win isn't as big as it was. He won more votes than Kamala Harris. The Electoral College works. Notice they're not attacking the Electoral College right now because they can't, given Donald Trump's victory over Kamala Harris. But they're not going to learn anything. And if you're Jewish, the Democratic Party is only going to get more and more hostile to you, I'm afraid. Just look at this. They have walked away from legislation they supported that would take away the tax-exempt status of nonprofits that support terrorist organizations. And the only reason they walked away from legislation a majority of them supported is because Donald Trump won the election. Nothing else has changed except that. It's Erick Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. I have to correct myself. I said after the election, Planned Parenthood reported requests for vasectomies had gone up 400%. I was wrong. Requests for vasectomies had gone up 1,200%. The left-wing men in America sterilizing themselves, neutering themselves so that they can have sex without consequences. The request for IUDs has gone up over 400%. It is Republicans who are saving America while the Democrats sterilize themselves. My buddy Nathan Leamer sent me this. States that vote for the Republican presidential candidates have higher fertility rates than states that vote for the Democratic candidate. Data from the CDC shows that in 2022 and 2023, the 10 states with the highest fertility rates were all Republican-leaning states, while the 10 states with the lowest fertility rates were Democratic-leaning or blue states. In fact, the South, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, even Virginia do great. The best states are the Dakotas. Well, of course, they're snuggling all winter long. They're frigid. Utah does great. Alaska and Texas, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, they're all highly reproductive states. States like California, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, they're not really producing kids. Yeah, it's the Republic. You know, I've said for a long time, when you look at the demographic data, it sounds like a funny line. I'm not really making it up, though, that the way we're going demographically, our nation is rapidly becoming a nation of Hispanic country music listening Baptists. The evangelical Hispanic population in this country is the most fertile in the country, the most reproductive. They have the most babies. They're Republican Hispanics in the South who go to Protestant churches, not Catholic churches. They listen to country music. They're as American as you and me, and they are making babies. And it is up from Texas north, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota. That's where all the babies are being made right now. California, the coast, New England, and the West Coast are where nobody wants to have kids. And who can blame me? People in California, it's too expensive out there for people to start a family. They punish you out there for starting a family, it seems. So God bless the GOP for keeping this country going, because the Democrats aren't doing it. They're getting sterilized. Now, with banks collapsing, with the economy in still teetering, you heard the story yesterday about Target saying there's a massive slowdown in shopping. It's not just Target now. Walmart and other stores are also warning about the same thing happening to them for the Christmas season. Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about a secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from this secret war, you need their free report. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau, and they can educate you on protecting your assets. The report takes less than 15 minutes to read. You can save on your retirement and finances. All you have to do is call or text 800-289-2646. The All Out War on Cash includes digital forms of currency as well. You can get the report completely free. All you do is mention my name, Erick, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. The report's free. Just mention Erick when you call or text 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. I just got some news I need to share with you guys. Y'all humble me regularly. We have raised well over $100,000 for Hungry for a Day. Thank you. So whether you're listening right now up in Connecticut, or one of my newer affiliates is KSTE out in Sacramento, California, or WGIG down in Brunswick, Georgia as well. Hungry for a Day that we partner with works around the country, and given my relationship with them, they have worked in particularly targeting areas where my show is on. So you guys who are in, for example, Sacramento, when you donate to Hungry for a Day through the donation portal, you're helping people in Sacramento. Those of you who are in Brunswick, Georgia, are helping people in Brunswick, Georgia. Those of you in Kalispell, Montana, helping people there. Those of you in Hartford, Connecticut, you're helping people in your own backyard. It's one of the reasons I love Hungry for a Day. They think smart. They do a great job. So this audience has ensured that over 2,500 families. That's a lot of people. 2,500. I'm 2,500. I'm kind of floored. Thank you all very, very much. What a wonderful organization, and what wonderful people you guys are that we have raised. The actual number is $119,038 as of this moment. If you would like to contribute, if you text donate to 33777, I'll send you back a link, Hungry for a Day. If you're just tuning in and you're not familiar with them, Hungry for a Day will, for $40, and if you can't give $40, that's fine. Give what you can. But for $40, works with food banks and soup kitchens around the country to prepare a Thanksgiving meal for a family in need. And it is a turkey, it's potatoes, mashed or sweet, mac and cheese, green beans, rolls, and dessert. And the cost for that is more than $40, but they work with other groups to help subsidize the cost. So for your $40, it is, you take care of a family of four for Thanksgiving. And you guys have just taken care of thousands of people around the country in your own backyard. So thank you. Seriously, y'all, I know your generosity when I do my Carathon in Atlanta, or a couple of years ago when prices were so high and we were raising money for gas cards with the Salvation Army, and you guys contributed like $250,000 in a day. And I know it's not easy for you guys right now either, because the economy sucks for everybody. And yet over $100,000 raised to help provide Thanksgiving meals for people. So thank you. Thank you very, very much. I want to go to the phones. The phone number here is 877-973-7425. There is some breaking news, though, I got to bring you, and that is that the House is announcing Marjorie Taylor Greene will be given a subcommittee chairmanship to help Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy with their Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. They are going to put her in charge of a subcommittee in the House that will help them with their cuts. Now, it's difficult, and here's why. A lot of what is done is appropriated by Congress, and you got to get Congress to change it, and in changing it, he's got to overcome a filibuster unless you can get it through on reconciliation. And so the work that Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk are doing with Marjorie Taylor Greene assisting is going to, they're going to have to work fast to get a reconciliation package together and be able to make these changes through reconciliation so they can bypass the filibuster. But there are a lot of government entities, welfare programs in particular, that can be consolidated and will save money, and I hope they start there. That's low-hanging fruit. Well, so David, yeah, well, let's keep BlackRock out of it, or it's all going to go ESG. But, to your point, this was the George W. Bush plan that even Democrats at this point acknowledge they should have used in 2005. So here's the deal. In 2005, after George W. Bush's reelection, the president proposed a privatization plan for Social Security. It was demonized so aggressively by the Democrats. The Republicans were like, we should abandon this. Here's the way it would have worked. If you were 50 or older, nothing would have changed. If you were 30 to 50, you would have the option to move into the new system. And if you were under 30, you would be forced into the new system. And the new system would essentially have been a 401k where the government would match your Social Security withholding from your paycheck. And it would have been privately invested into stocks and bonds. And over time, the adjustment would have been reallocated from stocks to bonds. So as you got to 65, You would go from 100% stocks when you're young to 100% bonds, interest-bearing bonds when you're old, to provide you stability, and would have gotten the government out of it. And the Democrats said, well, this would reward groups like BlackRock and Blackstone and investment managers, and it would hurt old people. And Bush was very clear, we're not changing anything. You're 50 and older, you get the current system. And had it happened when Bush proposed it, there would be a bunch of people retiring right now who would be millionaires, given the performance of the stock market since that time. There would be millions of people. But the Democrats demagogued it. The Republicans got scared and bailed on it. And now everyone's like, gosh, had we done this, we would have a bunch of millionaires in this country right now who had been in the middle class. But the demonization of it killed it. It was a smart plan. It was an absolute smart plan. And we should do it. You could very much maintain Social Security benefits with people. And it's all funded by an IOU anyway. Dave was right. It's an IOU from the Treasury anyway. JT, I got to tell you, I simply do not have an objection to the President of the United States asking military personnel to assist domestically in finding illegal immigrants, many of whom are criminals, have overstayed their visas, are possible sleeper cells, and evicting them from the country. I don't have a problem with it at all. I realize there are laws, posse comitatus among others. The military cannot engage in law enforcement activities inside the country. That is a existing law on the books from the 1800s. The American military is not allowed to engage in law enforcement function within the United States. I don't think mass deportations is a law enforcement function. I think it's a national security function. I have no problem at all with the president deploying the military, say, find every illegal immigrant who's not supposed to be here and round them up for the Border Patrol to process and deport out of the country. I don't know why we're not doing that. By the way, some breaking news happening. It appears that a top North Korean general has been wounded in Russia, thanks to British-made Storm Shadow missiles fired by the Ukrainians. This is happening now. A senior North Korean general was wounded in the Ukrainian strike in Kursk. A Western official is now reporting the North Koreans have been there assisting the Russians and prepping for invasion. The Western governments gave Ukraine authorization to use missiles into the Kursk region where the North Koreans were lining up, targeting them. The strike targeted an underground fortified command center. 18 Russian senior officers were killed, along with the North Korean military officer and a number of North Korean soldiers. This is just starting to come out now on the wires. Good for Ukraine for taking these out. Listen, y'all, I'm sorry, and I know there are those of you who are like, this is escalation. We're going to get World War III. We already got World War III. The North Koreans in Russia trying to invade Europe, that's World War III. And I have no problem with Ukraine trying to stop an invasion of Europe by North Korea. We'll just have to agree to disagree on that one. Now, I think you will all agree that Eden Pure Thunderstorm is a superior product. By the way, I got an email from someone this morning, actually says he ordered his Eden Pure Thunderstorm and it was slow to arrive. Did I know what was going on? Yeah. They are getting flooded with orders. My sister had the same situation. It's slow. So get your order in now. If you want them for the holidays, for gifts, whatever, go to EdenPureDeals.com. Use the discount code ERICK3, ERICK3. One of the things that slowed them down is they've got the new inventory of the new Eden Pure Thunderstorm, and it's different from the old one. The old one was black, looked like a book. This one is silver and actually a little more compact, but it generates not just ozone to wipe out odors, but plasma to wipe out bacteria and viruses as well. You can get them by going to EdenPureDeals.com, put in Erick3 as your discount code, and it's even though they've upgraded the device, it's more compact and does more. It's the same price. You can get 3 of them, save $200. You get all 3 for less than $200. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com, put in Erick3. It wipes out any odor. No odor can stand up to it. It wipes out viruses. It wipes out bacteria. It traps pet dander, pollen, and dust and mold floating in the air on electrostatic plates, so you don't need a filter subscription. It just works. EdenPureDeals.com, the discount code ERICK3, ERICK3, at EdenPureDeals.com. I mentioned yesterday that California in the 2030 census, given its population flight from California, it stands to lose up to 4 congressional seats. California is the most populous state and has the most members in Congress right now, and it stands to lose at least 4 seats. However, California, it's got, 52 members in the House right now, California does. And it stands to lose up to 8 seats if it were to have to deport all of its illegal aliens, given so much of its population. About a third of the Hispanic population in California is estimated to be illegal in this country illegally. And so if you deported all those with the flight from California, instead of losing 4 seats in the 2030 census, you could lose up to 8. And it could lose more given what it does to business. So in California, they took out a loan for $20 billion from the federal government. California has decided to default on its federal unemployment insurance loan. Turns out that under the rules for this loan, if the state stops paying the loan, the state's businesses have to repay the loan. Andrew Gruel, you've probably seen him on Fox, great chef, great human being. He put out this tweet and he says, we just ran payroll. The payroll taxes were $2,000 higher than calculated. We called the payroll company. They explained that California has a budget shortfall. The federal government wants money back that it lent California for unemployment insurance that it lost, quote unquote. They're making up for it by having business owners pay it. Keep in mind, it was around 10% of our total payroll. When people say, why is California not business friendly? Remember this. And a reporter chimed in and said, sent this snippet. Little did California businesses know that they were co-signers on the state's $20 billion loan from the federal government used to cover California's unemployment fund shortfall during COVID. This ugly truth became apparent when the state recently decided to stop making payments on the loan. When a state defaults on its federal unemployment insurance loan, federal law requires that the state's businesses repay the loan. So businesses in California, small to large, are being hit with extraordinary taxes for unemployment benefits because the state of California decided to default on its loan. That is why businesses and individuals keep fleeing that state. It is badly mismanaged, but the rich people don't feel the burden of it, and so they keep the bad managers around like Gavin Newsom. He will never be president of the United States because of stuff like this.